Snot girl and tissue boy.
Oh,
I think we just
match made in heaven.
we
I
have.
gotta text my wife.
Oh no. Hi, I'm Cheryl Sloboda, and welcome to Con Crunch. Today we have Cassidy.
Hi, my name is Cassidy, also occasionally known as Cassiopeia.
She is going to be making her interpretation of a Bombshell Starfire costume. We're going to be working on her jacket. Cassidy's been sewing for 10 years, so she is an expert at this. I think we have lots of different cool tips that we can show you that will help you learn about interfacings and all sorts of other sewing tips as we go. I can't wait to hear about cosplay from you and what we're gonna make. Yeah. Before we get to all of that, tell me a little bit about why cosplay. What about cosplay appeals to you?
I've been a huge nerd my whole life. Growing up, my mom always made my sister and my Halloween costumes for us. For a couple of years, we were very goofy things, mermaids, things of that nature. My sister was an elf from Lord of the Rings, and then it just spiraled from there, and I decided I wanted to try and make my own stuff. I've been cosplaying for 10 years, maybe 11 now. I believe my first time was in 2008.
Well, let's talk about some of the cosplay that we have on the set.
So this is my Alice Little cosplay. It's based on the game American McGee's Alice Madness Returns. It's a really fun video game. And this is one of her many costumes in the game. It's called the Misfits dress, so it's supposed to look sort of like a creepy doll. So here I have a couple of weapons from the new Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I didn't make this piece. This is actually a 3D printed piece. Came in separate pieces, and then you sand it, glue it together, paint
really
it.
Cool.
Instead of making it myself. This guy is made out of foam and a thermoplastic over it.
Okay.
And then my dear friend Deo Solaris Cosplay sculpted the snake handle for me. The character is Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is one of her bracers. Now this is multiple layers of foam as well. So it's a base layer with a thinner foam over top to create the different shapes. And then these round pieces, the rivets, are actually googly eyes.
No way.
Yeah, they kind of shake.
Oh my gosh, I can hear them.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's a little fun secret down there. And then you cover it all in the thermoplastic and it makes it less googly eye. It looks like rivets. All of these skills, I've kind of picked them up and gotten them from a bunch of different friends and other cosplayers in the community. We're all very welcome to sharing our ideas and our skills. So this is the helmet of Cassandra from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's set in ancient Greece, so I made a Greek Spartan helmet. She's actually a Spartan.
Okay.
And the helmet itself is actually made out of foam as well. So it's very lightweight. It doesn't really give you much of a headache.
So tell us what you're working on. You mentioned Starfire, so.
Yes. So I'm working on DC's Bombshell Starfire design. They came out with a line of the DC girls in 50s, 40s pinup style called the Bombshells.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've done a couple of those already. I've done Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, Raven, and Batgirl. And I decided to just continue adding on to that. She's sort of a firefighter design, and it's adorable because she's putting out her own hair, which is fire. So I've already made the skirt for her. It's just a simple half circle skirt. I've already made the boots, and I've painted them with leather paint. You can kind of tell if I flip this up that they were a different color at some point.
Oh, these were brown boots.
They were
to
brown,
start.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just got leather paint.
Well, so you've got the skirt, you've got the boots.
Yes.
I see the helmet back there.
Yes. So the helmet is just a paramedic helmet that I bought pre-owned. So it's a real paramedic helmet that I got.
Oh, wow.
And then I built the fireman plaque the same way I built my Cassandra armor.
Okay.
So it's foam with a little bit more foam on top and googly eyes, then covered in Worbla. And then you
Googly eyes.
prime it and paint it. What we're working on today is really the only piece that I still need to make for it. The other pieces you can just buy. It's a white tank top, things like that, suspenders. I just need to make her fireman's jacket today, which we're gonna make out of this really pretty one-way stretch purple suiting that I have purchased and already pre-cut. I would like to start with first cutting out all the interfacing.
Okay, so you tell me what you need and I will hand you some stuff.
Let's start with the interlining. Now, luckily on patterns, they will typically tell you if it needs line.
And these
interfacing.
even say right on here, front facing. And so these mean that are these going to be on the interior of the jacket?
Yes.
Right, so that will be turned towards the inside of the jacket.
So we'll start with that one. We need to cut 2 of that white inner lining
Yep.
to go with.
This is called Power Boost. It's by So Much Cosplay by R&K. When you are using this, you're going to feel for the side that has the dots.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to be the side that
The
you're going to
glue.
want to make sure that you glue towards the pieces.
pieces.
So you need to know which is going to be the right side and the wrong side of your material before you start.
And one thing you can do too is when you're cutting a pattern, most of the time, the way you cut it out is you'll have 2 mirrored pieces. So you can always double up on the interfacing.
Yes.
And that way you'll get 2 mirror images of the lining and or the interfacing.
And you are following the directional of the
grain
of the
line.
grain line.
Yes. I didn't always do that, but I had a friend that let me apprentice with her and she really ironed that into my memory.
So I
of the
think you're a
grain line.
little off the edge. Yep. There we go. There you go.
Now normally what you're supposed to do is go just along the pattern piece, but I typically have about 1/8 of an inch
Okay.
or 2/8 of an inch on the outside because it's 10 times easier to take it in than it is to let it out.
Well, that's good
So
to
I'd
know,
rather
right?
have all my costumes be a little too big before they're finished than too small and have to redo everything.
So here are your other pieces that need interfacing.
Yes. So this one is primarily a stabilizer for the back of the collar, which I might actually skip. I take a lot of shortcuts when I'm sewing.
Sure.
I'm not going to be wearing this all the time. It's really only going to be something I wear occasionally for a costume. So it doesn't need to be the most stable thing in the world, but that's definitely up to personal preference. So I'm probably actually not going to use this piece.
Fair enough.
So these pieces, though, are important.
So they are labeled as the upper collar.
So there's an upper collar and an under collar. Both of these I would like to be stiffer. I want that comic stiff look, and especially since the collar, it does need to be more stable than other pieces.
Okay. So this is the Deco Magic Light.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it comes on a roll, and it also, if you can see, it has that sort of reflective side. That's the glue side.
Now, these pieces were cut on a fold. So instead of using the pattern, and you could use the pattern and then flip it to trace it, but I'm just going to use the actual piece and trace the actual piece.
Awesome.
It's less work in the long run.
And you're going to want to also make sure you transfer your notches and things like that.
Yeah, definitely always want to transfer your notches. They're very important. They'll help you line up the pieces later on when you get to the sewing phase.
So now you can see she's transferred her marks from the pattern piece that are also on your fabric piece, and now they're on your interlining.
Yes, exactly. I like to think I'm more like Bob Ross at Cosplay. It's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. So I'm assuming these are our
Yes, and so these
processors.
they're called awesome armor snips. So if you're building any more armor, you're gonna want to try to use these. And these are great. They work like shears, so you can cut with them pretty easily, and I would just give them a shot.
kind of like gardening shears.
They are a little bit like gardening shears, but a little more precise.
Yeah, probably a lot sharper too. And
Okay,
don't forget
well,
to cut the notches too.
That's right. And then we're using Deco Magic in the actual belt itself. And it is much thicker. So it has a much heavier consistency compared to this that we're putting in your collar.
So this is just the pattern for the tie belt. Now, I did have to cut out technically 4 pieces of this, but what we're
Okay.
going to do is we're basically going to sandwich the interfacing in between the 2 pieces. So it'll be attached, ironed onto one piece,
Right.
and then you'll flip it out.
I see.
And it'll be sandwiched inside. So
And I
we're
think
just gonna
we'll do the
trace this
same
guy.
thing. We'll draw it onto the material first, and then we'll cut it out.
Okay.
Okay, so we have finished cutting out all of our pieces, and now we are ready to iron them.
You'll want to make sure that you're putting the interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric. Now, some of the fabric, it's hard to tell which is the right and wrong side, where others it's easier. And I'm just going to start at one edge. You could start in the middle, but if it's slightly off, that'll ruin the rest of the ironing job. So I tend to start just at one edge and work my way down the pattern piece.
But look at how much body that has given the fabric.
So compared to the other collar piece, which is very flimsy still, this one is much stiffer. Perfect for a collar.
See? There you go. So let's do the belt pieces next, since we've got the heavy duty setting on.
And definitely make sure the shiny side is down. That is the glue. You can definitely get glue all over your iron, which would definitely put a stop in the project for
that would be a disaster. Don't do that.
I'm going to try not to. Done it before. Yes. I've done that before. I've messed up a costume, threw it away, nobody ever saw it. It's fine.
So now we have finished the belt and the collar pieces. Now we have the front placket. We just need to put the Power Boost interlining on.
Okay, so we'll figure out which is the right and the wrong on these pieces first. So it looks like I have the right sides out on these pieces. So I'll just take this one away for now.
Right, and then we need to double check which side is the glue.
Yes.
And that's going to be the rougher side. So you're just going to feel for the glue. The thing about using the pressing motion also means that we're not shifting the interfacing on the fabric. If you shift it, then the bottom down here won't match up with the actual pattern piece. So by using that up and down motion of pressing, you're going to get a more matched piece to your fabric. And what this interfacing is doing is it's giving the fabric a little bit more body so that it actually lays flatter on the body.
Yeah, if you've seen real firemen's jackets, they're very stiff. This is nothing like what they're made out of, but this will definitely give more of the image of a stiff fireman's jacket versus a fabric fall coat or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's one.
Okay, great.
We'll do the other one.
We have all of our pieces here, so now we're ready to get started to sew after we finish this last bit of pressing. Well, we have Trinity here, who is our judging and competition expert. And Trinity, when it comes to a competition, how important is that the cosplay is an original design?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's important, but it does give you a lot of kudos or brownie points, especially when that original design turns out so well.
I think some people are scared of doing original designs, and you don't think that's a hard thing to do?
I don't, but that's because I've always mocked up my own patterns. I've never actually, until recently, started using real patterns. Like this one here is a complete mock-up.
So you designed all of this yourself?
Yes.
Awesome. As a judge, like what are the details that you're specifically looking for when you're doing your judging?
The details that I'm looking for are more or less the tiny things. So for instance, with this particular cosplay, Beldandy is a goddess from Oh My Goddess, and her thing is about being beautiful, but one of the big things on her outfit are the orange triangle trim. And so it needs to be perfect. And I ended up taking the time and measuring every single triangle to make sure that was perfect. That's that tiny little bit of detail that from afar a lot of people wouldn't notice, but as a judge, it's something I'd be like, oh, that's, good eye, good attention for detail.
And then as a judge, you've probably seen some pretty amazing cosplays over
Oh yeah, stuff that's blown me out of the water.
Is there one thing that kind of really stood out to you as sort of like a pinnacle of cosplay in competition?
There's so many. Every year, people bring the best that they can do. And I can't just say, oh, I remember this cosplay, I remember this. It's every cosplay that everybody brings to the competitions is the best they can do, and it's the pinnacle of cosplay because it's their heart and soul put into their art.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for these competition tips. I really enjoyed having you here.
I enjoyed being here.
Thanks. We are done ironing, and now we're ready to sew.
So I just marked the point and the sides, and what I'm just gonna do with the ruler, the straight edge, is I'm just gonna trace them all the way down instead of having to cut through the pattern.
So this chalk is like got a little container of powder in it, and you're just using that and dragging it over the fabric.
I marked on the wrong side. This is the wrong side of the fabric, so no one's gonna see it anyways. But you just want to pinch it and match up the lines on the fabric here. Sometimes it's a bit hard to tell, and one trick that I do is I stick a pin through one side of it on the line, and then I find the line on the other side.
That's what I do as well. Yeah, I use the pin to like act as a guide through the one seam line, and then you just poke that through the other side, and then you know you have your dart lining up.
Yes. But once you have it pinned, you can just take it over to your sewing machine. You can go really fast if you're confident with it. I've been sewing for a long time, but I still like to take my time when I'm sewing things like darts, just because I'd rather do it once than twice. So you're gonna wanna do the regular stitch, and you're also gonna wanna back stitch, which is important. And once you've back stitched, then you'll just continue the stitch on. And if you feel like it's too slow, like I do, just gonna go a bit faster.
And so you are taking out your pins, which is really important. Don't sew over your pins.
Some people do, and it could break your needle.
What you can see there is now this is going to have a curve to it so that it'll fit to the body better.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so
Just
we're
need to do the
going
other
to
one.
need to do that to the second piece.
Correct.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yep. Camera spins. And
Yeah, right? All right, and so we've got our second one, and look at how nice that is. We are going to put these aside and move on to our back. That looks like the back piece.
Okay, so we're just going to stitch the back to the front at the shoulder seams is what the next step is
Okay.
here. So this is the back piece. It was cut on a fold, so it's actually just one big piece. And I made the jacket a little oversized for my shape because I want it to be like a large fireman's jacket. And you want to have right sides together in a sandwich. So we're just going to attach them here on the shoulders, and this is where those little notches come in. As you can see, these two notches will meet up here on the shoulder seam.
Pattern pieces should fairly fit together like a puzzle.
Now this one you can see I've forgotten to do the notch, but we matched up the other side, so it's not the end of the world.
We forget.
Yeah, there's so many little steps that even after 10 years of sewing, you're still gonna mess up. You're never gonna be perfect. Okay, so we're just going to stitch these shoulder seams together in the same sort of fashion that we did the darts. You just wanna backstitch at the beginning and the end.
All right, so now you are attached at the shoulders.
Yes, so it's sort of a thing now.
Yeah,
can
it's
see,
sort of like a
sort of like a
strange-
shawl,
like a cape.
at this point. Yeah. Okay, so actually we will sew together part of the side that we interfaced, so the number 7 piece to this little 8 piece. And we're just going to be sewing the shoulder pieces together here. So this is the interfacing on the inside. It's just like what we just did. You just want to match up the notches to the piece and then sew it together.
Right.
So now we have that interfacing piece done. It looks a bit silly now, but it'll make sense when it's in the actual garment. So following the pattern, the next process.
Oh, it's to turn it in.
So it'll be this flat edge here. It's just gonna be a little bit of a cleanup on the inside. I'm just gonna do a sort of sloppy rolled hem on it. You just fold it once, and then you fold it twice, and that's a rolled hem. Some machines do have a rolled hem foot that will do it for you, but you can just do it yourself very easily.
And
as
you're an
well.
experienced sewist, so you're just eyeballing this, but
Yeah.
the directions for the coat actually do tell you how much you want to fold it in, and, you know, Cassidy just knows what she's doing.
I'm just guessing as I go, honestly.
So we just finished all of that hem, and now we have pinned our collars together that we have previously interfaced with Deco Magic Light, and we're going to sew those together.
And I'll just make it a little bit bigger than what it looks like in the pattern photos, but not too much of a difference.
Is that because you want more of like a wider collar?
Yeah, I want it to be more like theatrical looking almost.
Sure.
Now this is a curve, so definitely take your time on it. It's also something that you can stop and lift the foot and then continue.
There you go.
Now I'm just gonna clip the corners here, the round corners. This will make it lay easier after we press it. And then also just trim the seam in general. Okay, so you just wanna flip it right sides out, and you wanna make sure that those corners go as far out as you possibly can. If you're having a hard time with it or it's really narrow, sometimes the back of a pencil is really good, the eraser side. So
Okay.
part of the collar.
All right, and so I'm gonna give this a press so that it's ready, and we will pin it into the collar.
You always want the right sides together when you're making a seam. So we'll attach the collar before we attach the inside piece.
And you're making sure that the collar is right side towards the right side of the garment.
Yes.
Yeah, this is where you want your heavy duty pins because you're pinning through such a thick layer, or you want to use your clips.
All
Look
right.
at that. Oh, so we have the start of a collar.
Yeah, it's the start of something. So right sides together on the interfacing piece, as you'll notice, the notches match up again. So that super thick collar seam is going to become even thicker. So we're definitely putting this brother machine to the test.
Okay, so we're going to continue pinning this, and then we're going to sew this seam, and then we will have a really good start on this jacket.
Yeah. It just needs a side seam and some sleeves.
Yeah. Okay, so we have finished putting on our interfaced parts. We've done our collar, so why don't we give it a test fit and see how we're doing.
Yeah, so at the moment it's more of a cape than a jacket since there aren't any sleeves and it's not quite all the way sewn together. But it's always good to try on what you're making as you're making it to make sure you're happy with the product.
That's awesome.
So you can see the super dramatic collar that we got from the interfacing.
And we flipped these, but these still need to be trimmed out and pressed. So, and maybe even top stitched.
Yeah, I'll probably top stitch these to make sure that they don't flap open.
And then show the interior of the linings so that we can see.
Yeah, so that seam that we made earlier is just so that you don't see the interfacing that we put on.
And the reason we want that is because we want these lapels to lay very nicely, and that's why they needed to be interfaced. So you still have some more work to do. Our con crunch is not over.
No.
You have sleeves to put on. Can we talk about your wig?
So Starfire is a character that's known for, having an orange skin tone. She has fiery hair. It's quite literally made out of fire in the majority of the comics and adaptations that she's in. Now, she's also known for having extremely long hair. Most wigs that you can buy, they do have really long ones, but to get the flame gradient that I wanted, I actually purchased 5 separate wigs.
To get the ombre effect.
Yes, and I have Frankensteined them together in a similar fashion as I do with patterns.
So you Frankensteined a pattern and a wig.
And a wig.
Well, 5 wigs.
Yeah, so she has a flame gradient here. Got my primary wig up here that I will still style. The rest of it, there's just other reds, oranges, and yellows. And how I did that was I just cut the wigs up, and then I sewed them together on the inside. So it's not too pretty on the inside, but it looks super cool on the outside.
Okay, so this is the interior of the wigs, and you've just trimmed the wigs so that it laid it flat enough for you to be able to sew it.
Yep, and I just pinned it and I hand sewed them together on the inside.
Okay, so you did those by hand. Oh my gosh, Cassidy, thank you so much for coming and telling us all about your cosplay and also being in the Con Crunch with us.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting. We learned all sorts of things about Frankensteining patterns, putting in interfacings, and getting that stiffness that you need for both soft drape and a stiff collar. So I think we learned a lot today.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot done, and we used a lot of different materials to make a pattern what we need it to be.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yay.